Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Today I am joined by Miss Rachel Bailey. She is a parenting specialist who has been serving families for over a decade. Besides being a mother of two, she also has a master's degree in clinical psychology, a certification in positive discipline, and has provided services as an ADHD coach, in-home mentor, and therapist. Through her podcast, programs, and services, Rachel teaches parents hands-on tools for raising responsible, resilient children while reducing the stress and guilt in parents' lives. So, I have been super excited to have this conversation with Rachel because we are talking about raising kids with big emotions. And I definitely feel like I have at least one, if not multiple kids with some pretty big emotions. And then I think I probably was also a kid with big emotions and didn't really always know how to handle those. So, Rachel, can you kick us off and just kind of tell us what it is that we mean when we say kids with big emotions?
Yeah, that's the perfect place to start, obviously. And it's funny, I didn't come up with that phrase. It came from me working with parents and saying over and over, my kids have big emotions. So it's actually, it can mean really almost anything. But the way I define it and the parents I specialize with, their kids are either sensitive, meaning you can tell you say something and they kind of have a disproportionate reaction, or they're anxious, worrying about a lot or becoming really, really irritable when things don't go their way, or they're strong willed. So they get really upset if you ask them to do something they don't want to do, they'll push back a lot. These are all, they sound like sort of different types of kids, but underneath all of this are big feelings and they have a hard time managing those feelings. So these behaviors are really just symptoms. These big emotions are symptoms that they're struggling a little bit more.
Yeah. So, what would you say is kind of the best thing we can do as parents when we are identifying and seeing that our kids are struggling with some of those big emotions?
Yeah, and the first and most important thing is to see that it's not a threat, it's not a problem. In fact, I talk a lot about emotional regulation is just recognizing, oh wow, they're having a big emotion. Usually we see it and we're like, why is my child acting like this? Are they always going to act like this? And we kind of have a worried or a big reaction, whether it's internal or external. We have a big reaction. Really, we just want to say, okay, this child feels things strongly. That's not a bad thing, and I can teach them resilience. I can model resilience. It's not, in fact, I am what's called a highly sensitive person. So I feel things very strongly. And it doesn't mean I'm weak. I'm very strong. I just have to know how to manage my emotions so they don't control me. And that's basically what I teach. How do we teach kids and parents with big emotions how to respect our emotions, not fear them, not think they're a big deal, but not let those emotions control us?
Sure, sure. So I think for myself, sometimes since I also feel like I have some big emotions sometimes,
Mhm.
and it's my daughter typically that she just really mimics me, and I feel like she has a lot of big emotions. I can recognize it, but I find myself also getting dysregulated. So then we're
Mhm.
both dysregulated.
That's
So
exactly what usually happens. Yes.
do you have some tips or tricks that we can use in those moments
Yes.
that would help?
Yes. So I'm going to tell you this. It's basically all about what I call yuck. This is a term I use. Everyone who's heard me knows I'm like the yuck lady. So basically, yuck is a feeling of discomfort. So yuck could be that we're frustrated, worried, overwhelmed, sad, hungry. It doesn't matter. Anything uncomfortable. And what you described is what I call the cycle of yuck, because yuck comes out as a behavior. You know someone's in yuck because maybe your daughter has a big reaction. In fact, why don't you tell me something your daughter has a big reaction to? What is something?
Okay, let me think of something that's recently happened. So she has a hard time. I'm trying to think of something specific. Just like when we're not doing things exactly the way she kind
What
of
she
wants, or
wants.
things don't go her way. Yeah, she's not getting what
Yes.
she wants. And that can be in a
Yes.
multitude of different situations. But
Okay,
yeah.
let's use that. That's perfect.
And she's just
So,
so frustrated. Like she's so
yes.
aggravated.
So know this about people who feel things strongly is that they like things to go a certain way. They have this like zone of comfort. Like if it goes this way, I'm uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. But you can almost think of it this like the game of operation, like where you get too close to the edge and it goes, eh.
Hmm.
And what happens is when we go to too close to the edge, that's where we're in yuck, we're in some sort of discomfort. And our brain, especially when we feel things strongly, senses that as a problem or a threat. So fight or flight kicks in. And that's when you see her reaction is actually a sign that she saw a problem with things not going her way. So she had some sort of reaction, like maybe, Mom, you're the worst. And then you see that, that puts you into yuck. and you see that as a problem. So you have a yuck behavior. Your yuck behavior puts her into yuck, and it creates a cycle of yuck. So she says, Mom, you're the worst. And your brain is like, this is a problem. I'm uncomfortable now. And you say, oh, yeah. Not that you would say this, but some of us do. You think I'm the worst? Well, and then that puts her deeper into yuck, which puts you deeper into yuck. And this is what I call this cycle of yuck. And one of the ways, because you asked, how do you get out of this? You just had to kind of know what's going on, is you keep triggering each other's fight or flight response.
Hmm.
And that's the behavior. One way to get out, as I mentioned earlier, is just not to see it as a threat. When you see her behavior and you see, oh, she says, you're the worst. In your mind, say, oh, yeah, she does say that when she's upset. All it is she's dysregulated and she doesn't have a better coping mechanism yet. All it is. I don't have to fix it in this moment. And then what I teach parents to do is come up with plans. But your job is to stop seeing it as a threat. And this is very hard. If you don't have a plan, it's very hard. But this is the key that I teach everyone. You have to stop engaging with their yuck. It's a big quote I have everywhere. Stop engaging with the yuck, because then you create a cycle of yuck.
Okay, that makes total sense. And I'm sure that you kind of have to, I'm sure it's very individualized, as
Yeah.
far as like what your plan is or what works for
Yeah.
you and what works for your child. I'm sure, there's not really one thing we can all do that.
Except that it does all come down to reducing the threat. So what I have parents make is a threat plan. So why is that? I have them figure out, why is that such a threat? And it's all these different reasons. To your point,
Uh-huh.
it's all different, but it all comes down to that. When we stop seeing that as a threat, our fight or flight doesn't get kicked in, and then we respond much more effectively.
That's so good. Okay. So do you feel like, is this something, I'm trying to think of how I want to ask this question. Is there practices you feel like parents and kids, like we need to be doing on a regular basis, almost like every day routinely to prevent these things from happening? Or is this something that you kind of have to attack in the situation when it's happening, or probably, of course, a combination of both?
It's a little bit, but I would say it's 90% outside of the moment. Yeah,
Like
90%
teaching
outside,
those
because
coping skills.
teaching those skills. And what I teach is to teach parents, kids, things like flexible thinking. So let's go back to your daughter. Remember, I said she has kind of a narrow zone of tolerance. Like if you get
Mhm.
to the edge, it's going to go, eh. We can actually widen that for her. We could teach her, like, oh, if mom says no, I can't have this, it's actually not that big of a deal, because what she's thinking now is it's a big deal. Fight or flight response kicks in. And that's why she has that reaction. But if we teach them how to stop seeing it as a threat, or we teach them when you do feel frustrated, how to handle it better, those are the things we teach. But none of that can happen in the moment. It all has to happen outside of the moment.
That makes sense. I feel like as my toddlers have gotten like 2, 3, 4, I've spent a lot of time just helping them identify and name their emotions.
That's the first step. That's it. And
Yeah.
I'll give you another tip to that. That's beautiful. If you externalize it, so name them, and I even have kids draw them.
Hmm.
Like I use the word yuck, but they can use the word any word they want. Like they could literally name it Harry or Sally, but they should draw it, because how we teach kids to not let it control them is we teach them, say, there's, the butterflies in my belly, or Harry or Sally, whatever they name it. And then we teach them actually how to calm down their nervous system, so
Hmm.
they don't just blurt out something mean to mom or dad. Absolutely.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Okay, so if somebody really wants to dig deeper into this and kind of get started, they feel like they really need this for them and for their kid.
Mhm.
Where do you have like a resource you'd like to share with everyone, or somewhere that you would like to point them to go?
Yes. So we'll start with, I have something that explains a little bit more about yuck and how it works in the moment. Because what I said to you is you can't get threatened by it, you can't engage. That's really hard. So I have a free resource that I'll give you and your audience that actually talks about what it looks like, what to do when someone is actually in yuck.
Hmm.
It explains something I call the yuck curve, so you know how to handle it. So that is probably where I'd start, is just to understand why your child's reaction is not a threat. When you start to get that, you can break that cycle in the moment, and then you teach them skills outside of the moment.
Okay, awesome. Well, we will get that linked for everybody in the show notes. It will be there. I'll also link like Rachel's website and things if you want to find her there. And I'm going to leave you guys there for the week, and we will talk soon.